Yeah, there are people who can now hear me on Zoom around the world and around the country because Alan was that kind of a person in Norway, in Europe and Korea, perhaps. And Alan would have been thrilled to have you all coming together to commemorate his life. So I wanted to just share a quick story for you about the last few days, because when I was visiting Alan we came down to visit him around the time of the Biden inaugural. And it was not as cold as it was on some other January days. And we went to the park because I suggested that we needed to get outside. So we went to this wonderful park that Alan had recently found, which I call Ben Bernanke Park, but it's really like Ben Brennan Park in Alexandria. And we walked around, and Alan was still able to walk pretty well. And I had been encouraging him to get out and exercise. And eventually he wound up telling me that he was going to buy a bicycle and asked me to choose which bicycle. Should he get the red or the black folding bicycle? Because the doctors had prevailed upon him to get exercise. And so we walked back in April when I came down to visit him just before he got COVID, and before he went to the hospital. And he was able to walk much less then, and we had to stop much more often. And I wondered where the park was, and I couldn't find it. But when I came down in June to see him in the hospital, I always have my bicycle in the car. So I needed a place to ride my bike, and I found this wonderful bike trail in Alexandria. And I had purposely, in subsequent trips, I purposely picked a motel on this bike trail, which I found leads to this beautiful park. The park had geese, the park had turtles, the park had egrets, and especially the park had people picnicking, people wearing all kind of ethnic dress with their families on the lawn, and people with their kids, and people with their dogs. And Alan, in his inimitable fashion, would stop and talk to all of them. And so after that, we came down in July, in September, and just now, I brought Susan with me to that park to see what I was so excited about. And what I was excited about wasn't not only that I got to see those turtles resting there and the geese, but I got to see the people, and every one of those people, this was yesterday, we were there. Every one of those people with their kids, wearing their hijabs, wearing their all kinds of ethnic dress, and they're all saying hello, and it just filled me with Alan. And I just wanted to share that with you. It reminded me that Alan is still with us. Every time I see, people smiling, people with their kids, people, I know he would be so thrilled to see. He talked to the dogs, he would talk to the people, talk to the babies. And so Alan gave of himself in so many ways, and he became everyone's brother, everyone's uncle, everyone's family member. And so, and then he was volunteering all over the place at the Kennedy Center and the airport. He was volunteering at the Library of Congress, which he really loved. And I'm particularly pleased that tomorrow is the 77th anniversary of the United Nations. Alan, who was born less than 6 months after the United Nations was founded, was was a true global citizen and was, he loved languages, he loved travel, he loved meeting people from around the globe. He embraced anyone who appreciated the diversity of this planet. And so I think he would be especially pleased to know that we're here on the day before UN Day. Regardless of what UN hasn't done, it's held things together since the end of the war, and I hope it keeps doing what it's doing. And Alan wrote his essay when he was asked to be an exchange student to Norway. He was asked to do an essay about the United Nations, which at the time, this is 1962, there were politicians saying we should get the United States out of the United Nations and the United Nations out of the United States. And he wrote an essay in longhand, which I think I have a copy of on the table outside. So today we're going to share some stories about Alan. And that's the main thing, because he wants to hear your stories. Alan is here, these urns here. I'm gonna ask my friend, Joni, who's here, to help with the stories that you're gonna tell. But first, I wanna share some very brief videos with some friends from High Point, where Alan lives, and they really demonstrate that Alan loved everybody. So Rob, I don't know if you can hear, can you show the three videos in succession? They're very short. Thanks.
My name is Chris Hicks. I've been working at High Point Condominium for about 25 years. I've been knowing Mr. Alan Davis for about 10 years. But Mr. Allen, he was a person that he'll give you his shirt off his back. If you ask him to do anything for you, you won't have no problem at all. Mr. Allen was a good person, and I will always love him, always.
And he was your best buddy.
He was my best buddy.
Yeah.
We always talked about everything. Yeah. He didn't have to. He told me about his health and everything. I already knew about his health. Everybody I knew, a lot of people didn't know, but I knew about his health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It's all good.
And he loved you.
Yes, and I loved him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okie doke.
Number 2, please.
Been here for about 20. Hey, my name is Pete. I work at High Point Condominium. Been here for about 27 years. Known Mr. Allen since the time I got here. Mr. Allen he was such a good guy. I loved Mr. Allen. He was, you knew when he came. You knew when Mr. Allen showed up. You knew when you see him. He always spoke. And one thing about Mr. Allen, what caught my eye, I love when he used to speak those different languages to people. When I used to catch him, and he was speaking those languages to people. Such a good guy. Yeah. So friendly. And he always thought about the next person. He would always ask about Chris or me or how you were doing. He was such a good man. You know, I miss him. I wish his family, my blessings, I give his blessings to his brother, to everyone, to let you know that Mr. Allen was such a nice man. I miss him.
Did you know about where he was traveling when he would go?
Yeah, when he would travel all over the place, and he would go to different places, and he loved the heat. He loved the sun. He would say sometimes, Pete, I don't turn my air conditioning on. Everybody got their air conditioning on, but I don't want mine on. I just want it to be hot. I'm okay, like I am. And he would say, they're always complaining. And I would say, yeah, they sure are, Mr. Allen. He was such a good man. And I hope he rest in peace. I know he's traveling. He's enjoying wherever he is. He's traveling and he's talking all those languages that he would speak. I love you, Mr. Allen. Rest in peace. God bless you.
Roll number 3.
Party, every Christmas party, and he would bring me hot.
Yeah.
And then he would bring it and he would say, "Excuse me, I just got it out the oven. It is hot." And we would look at it, and we cut it, you taste it, then you keep cutting it.
It'll be gone. It won't
Next
last
thing you
long.
know,
Yeah.
everybody come down and Mr. Allen pear cake be gone.
So welcome, everyone. Before I introduce myself and the rest of the program, why don't we have a moment of silence? Get us started. We can all arrive in this place and get ready to share your thoughts about Alan. Thank you. Thank you for being present. My name is Joni Cohen. I am an old friend of Richie Davis. He actually played in a klezmer band at my wedding in Greenfield, Massachusetts, in 1997. And we've stayed in touch since, and about a decade ago, I came this way to take a job in the federal government. Still there. I didn't know Alan in so many ways. I feel like I did. Many of you in the room shared incredible memories. Others from around the globe chimed in. I saw videos and I felt like I knew a very small sliver of what seemed like what we would say a real mesh. I'm a globalist myself, having worked and lived all over the globe in global education. And so many parts of Alan's persona resonate so deeply with me and his love of people. And so when I read the different things and the places he went, it was always about the people, the people, the people, the people. And it just resonated deeply for me. So in the name of the people, we're going to use this sacred space, as Joseph Campbell likes to say, to honor Alan Davis today. And we're going to do it in a pseudo Quaker style, in the sense that we're not going to call on people. People are going to feel moved and they're going to speak. But also in the name of a sacred space and allowing everyone a piece of that sacred space, I ask that you be brief so that we can honor others to have the opportunity to share what comes up for them in this very public space. I have a camera, I have a phone and I could use my camera. But I might. So I ask you to self-edit. And, if you need some moments, think about what you're going to say before you speak, please do. We do have till about 4 o'clock for this sharing opportunity. And then we're going to do a little more formalized ending to the program. Sound like a good way to move forward? Okay.
Can I just add something?
You bet.
Real briefly, first of all, if you're planning to speak, we ask that you come more to the center of the room so that the Zoom folks can hear you. Also that you take off your mask and speak as loudly as you can so everyone can hear. And for the Zoom folks, thank you for being here. I see Alan's sister and his brother from Norway here. For the Zoom folks, we ask that you stay muted, but we will open the mics up at 4 o'clock to allow you to speak also briefly. And thank you.
Okay. So the sacred space is yours, and I'm just your guide.
Go first, if I may. Do you want me to move somewhere?
Yeah, Richie would like me to come to the middle.
Yeah, if you could do it, if it takes a long time, it might not be worth it, but
No problem.
yeah, good to hear you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Al De Gregorio, an old friend of Alan's. I'll try to be very brief and respectful. I did not think ahead of time because, quite frankly, it's kind of a painful time, as I'm sure it is for many people. So I figured it'd be better just to be somewhat spontaneous. I met Alan in 1988. At the time, I was 26. So needless to say, he was very influential on my life. We had a lot in common, a love of music, a love of international culture. And I was just starting out at 26, so I learned a lot from Alan. Thinking back on Alan, it's funny to hear myself say this because it doesn't really, his persona doesn't fit into it in terms of what I traditionally would think of this phrase, but Alan was larger than life. And I've always known that, but I've never really said it. And he just was an amazing guy, as everyone in here knows, and just even talking to the folks or listening to the folks that he touched just incidentally in his life. That was the way Alan was. He just made you feel very special. He could conversate with anyone and make you feel good. And he really did care about people. He was the type of guy that could give a shirt off of his back. I will tell you real briefly 2 quick stories. I would like to say, Rich, I very much enjoyed reading your story on Facebook about Alan winning the contest to go to Scandinavia. I knew all about the story. I knew all about his family. Hello there, foster family from Scandinavia. I knew all about the Norwegians from what Alan said. He cared a lot about them. But I love the story you told about him as a kid and how he was very interested at an early age with international relations and writing to the UN and winning. And that kind of finished the picture for me because as an adult, I knew all of those things about him, and just hearing how he got there was really good. So Alan and I had we were friends all through the years. He spent a lot of time at my house on Thanksgiving and Christmas. We used to kind of quasi arm wrestle with the folks from Baltimore because we would share, well, what do you mean you go on Thanksgiving? Well, then you have to be at my house for Christmas, those kind of things. And we did that for years and years. And Alan and I had an interesting relationship in the sense that Alan, we had a routine. So I was the crass one, and he would be the guy that was shocked and appalled by what I would say. And we would just have this routine, and it went on for 30 years, but it was so much fun. I'll give you 2 real quick examples. One of which was, and this is somewhat crass, so bear with me, we're all friends, but we were going somewhere and we were planning a meal together, and he had me get the herbs and the salad, all the stuff, because if those of you that knew him, he was a master chef. Incredible. So we were making a salad, and he was very adamant that I needed to get French herbs. So I went to the supermarket looking for French herbs. And I ended up getting Italian herbs because I'm Italian. I like Italian better than French. So Alan said, well, what do we have here? Well, I couldn't get French herbs. So I'll tell you what, I got Italian herbs. Alan, just piss in them and they'll be fine as French herbs. Shocked and appalled. We all had a good laugh about it. And then one of the stories and the thing about Alan was a great storyteller. I mean, he had so many genuinely unique things that happened and always interesting, but even the stories that I've heard for 30 years, he could make entertaining because he knew how to tell a story. So one of the stories I always love telling is my son, who's here, who's 25 now. When he was being confirmed, Alan came to the church, and his nickname was, we called him the Senator. Because back in '88, when I met him, he was nicknamed Senator Alphonse Tomato, because he's from New York, and that was our little joke. So he supposedly, as if those of you who knew Alan would always come late, elegantly late, socially late. But according to Alan, and I love this story, he walked into the church and was walking, everybody was there and the kids were up front, and someone turned around and said, "The senator." And everybody in the church turned around to look at the senator. In reality, I don't think anybody called out the senator. But it was just, that inflection of drama that just made the story so neat, and he would tell that story and we would crack up all the time. So in closing, it's still, to me, surreal isn't even the right word. It's hard to imagine that Alan's gone. And again, it goes back to him being larger than life. He just seemed to be the type of guy that would always be there. He was kind of bigger than life in so many ways. And I've heard that just even in getting to know Richie over the last few months. I know he has that influence on you as well. He's just bigger than life. And all I can say is we're all lucky to have had him in our life. And Alan, I'll miss you forever. Thank you all.
Hello, everyone. This is Bonnie Mitchell, and I work with Alan at Kennedy Center as an usher for over 10 years. I'm looking around to see if I see any other Kennedy Center ushers. Are you Richie? I want to give you this on behalf of the Kennedy Center office. I only put 2 cups in here. It's a Kennedy Center bag, 2 cups, so when you come, you can get a drink. Are there any Kennedy Center ushers here? Would you please stand? Hi, Ginger. Hey, ladies, would you all stand? Is Miss Clementine here? Would you all be willing to stand for a moment? If you can. There's Miss Ruth, Miss Ginger, there's Nate. So we are a family at the Kennedy Center. We all work with Alan. And when I say gentleman, I mean he was gentle and a man. And like Alan, I am fashionably always a few minutes late to make that grand entrance, but I was trying today to be on time. But I learned a lot from Alan. He, myself, and Clementine, on Friday nights, we worked in the concert hall. We would go to her place. They taught me about champagne, Prosecco. They would forget I was sitting there sometimes. They would speak in French. We celebrated birthdays, holidays, Thanksgiving. He's been in my house. He didn't like my flutes. So he bought me some flutes that have blue like sapphire stems. I'm gonna take a toast out of that tonight. But even during his illness and the pandemic, I would drive Miss Clementine over to meet him halfway in Virginia. She'd bring him flowers. He'd give us cheese. He'd bake pies. He was just a one-of-a-kind guy. And I want you to know that your brother he's very much missed. He has taught me so much, and it seems like he's touched all of the lives of the people here, and may he rest in peace and not be in pain anymore. And this is a card from me as well. And thank you so much for having us here today.
You can stay right where you are.
Let me stand up. Where did the camera get me?
Well, in front of the camera, they'll see you. Come.
Okay, let's try this. Yeah, John Anderson. Maxine and I have known Alan, of course, since early 80s. This is kind of building on what Al De Gregorio said, that Alan was a master storyteller. So this is a sort of a story about Alan as a storyteller, and I bet you all know him in that regard. Any rate, Maxine and I were lucky enough to be part of Alan's international set. He visited us in at least 3 places that we were overseas, in Morocco and Central America, Salvador and Guatemala. But this story comes back to DC, because we knew him over 3 decades, and a lot of that was in DC. You all may know that Alan did a lot of things in life, and this story sort of precedes the point at which he became, with Al and others in that part of the computer and software industry, a master trainer running around the world and doing training in various parts. We could talk about that too. But this is a period actually before that was kind of a difficult period for Alan because he was between jobs. The little consulting firm where we hung out together and chased after federal contracts, and I ultimately went to Morocco on that project there, and Alan was the home office manager. But after he left there and before he became this high-flying international software trainer, he worked at a place called Radio Shack. This was actually kind of come down as for Alan. He didn't really want to go there, but he knew he sort of needed to get hip on computer language and computer skills, and at least be able to talk the talk. So there he was in this period. I can't tell you how many months he was there, but between jobs there, he worked, and we are kind of taking credit for it because we were the ones who encouraged him, we think, to go to Radio Shack. And yeah, he had to punch a cash register now and there and do things I think he would rather not have done. But in all, he hated it, he did it, and he moved on. Meanwhile, there was, and this is one of the stories that we love to hear Alan tell, there was a Russian woman who worked there with him at Radio Shack. Richie's heard about this. I think he even knows the story. You can tell it your way, but I'll tell it my way. I think this woman was probably a woman that CIA had as an informer there, and they brought her over on a safety program, you know, sort of like witness protection, but they did a year or so room and board, and then you got to get out in the world and work. So there she was, and I think she was highborn. That is, she seemed to have kind of a democratic background. But Alan tried to befriend her. You know, he loved the international folks, and one time he was talking to her and telling her, well, you know, he's been to Europe, he's been around the world. He didn't really feel all that much like an American, he told this woman, and she told him, yes, you are very American. You are always talking about feelings. Story. He'll do the accent better, but I'll give you what I can do. Anyway, he stayed on for several months. And at another point, I think he was still trying to warm up to this lady. And Svetlana, if you're out there, by the way, you get to tell the story your way. I'm going to tell it mine. But he said, you know, I'm kind of just here between jobs, and I'm kind of learning the ropes. And I'm going to ultimately leave here and get another kind of job in the computer software industry. And Svetlana said, yes. Others have come here and they have said the same thing. They are no longer here. And they have gone nowhere. So that was Svetlana. That was his word. This is one of the stories that I like to hear from Alan. I could probably hear it a half dozen times and still hear it again. In any case, you all probably know stories. And I put another one in Alan's memory book that is about going way back, even before I knew Alan, and had to do with the garden party in Atlanta. You can read the thing in the memory book. I won't take you there. I wish I could do the accent that Alan could, which is a true Georgian Dixie accent. But if you know the story, come and talk to me later, because I want to hear it your way and what you know about that story and any others. At any rate, Alan the storyteller, it was great. And hey, I'll still remember those stories. I think you will too.
And remember, you can come right about here, and that way the Zoom folks can see you really well.
No.
Please.
Just stand where you are.
Yeah, or you can stay right where you are. Perfect.
Well, my name is Miguel Guilarte.
Oh,
My wife
is
is
it on
Carla,
four? Oh,
Margaret and Annabelle. My wife and I came from Venezuela 23 years ago. And then we went to live in year 2003, we went to live to High Point.
Can I ask who's ever not muted,
Fred?
to please mute?
Fred, Cameron,
Fred,
please
can
mute.
you
Thank
please
you.
mute your computer? Thank you so much. So sorry.
I'm asking Fred to mute.
Thank you. Speak again.
Okay, thank you. I was saying that we went to live High Point condominium the year 2003. And a few months or in there, we heard a voice talking in the lobby with a lot of people. But then it was Alan who said, "Hola, ¿cómo están?" And it was my wife and I. And since that day, we really became very good friends. He used to edit. I used to tell him that he was my favorite editor because he used to edit all my English texts for job, for university, for the school. And then the Margaret was born, and she used to hide Alan's keys. He was always complaining, but no, he was never mad. He was always happy and ready to help us. And then when we decided to take the kids to the private school, we were those long essays, and Alan was the editor of that. And then we took him to the school for the parents and best friend days. And the people even asked, how is that that they have a American uncle if you guys are from Venezuela? So that was, he was always ready to help us late at night, anytime. The only thing that I remember him telling me not to do is to call him before 10 or before, or before 11. 2 or 3 years ago, he told me, "Hey, Miguel, you know what? I had too many ties. And I am retired. I don't wear ties. So do you want to go to see the tie?" He had like a 500 ties. He wanted me to take many of them, but I only got like about 10. And today I'm wearing one of them. It was one of her favorite ties. So that one too. I saw that one. I didn't pick it.
Better taste than
And I might know that probably today the first time that I see your faces, but I probably heard about you by Alan stories. He used to take us desserts when he was traveling to Baltimore, Reston, or South Carolina, North Carolina, all those places where he has friends for Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, and things like that. He used to go to our house to give us the desserts that he was making for that occasion. And I will never forget the rice pudding that we used to eat with him. And then once when we were eating those rice pudding, not far away from here on Lee Highway in Arlington, he told us, I will be eating this until my last days. And I am happy because my wife and I were able to take that rice pudding to him on July the 2nd to the hospital. And he was very happy to eat that rice pudding. So I can spend the whole afternoon telling you the story. One of the favorite stories is how he found that job in Atlanta when he was traveling the country, showing books or things like that. And then he said, and then he was born in New York, but he loved Atlanta. He felt like Atlanta. And when my daughter was applying for 18 university, he edited this. He was picked by Emory, and he said, that's the best choice you have. And then, of course, when she picked Northwestern, he was also very happy to hear about that. And, but like I said, I can be here telling you stories about Alan, but I will never forget him. He was my best friend, my best American friend, my best thing, and I will always be grateful for what he did for us. Thank you.
Story,
Don't be shy.
please. Anecdotes, anything.
Yeah, I'd like to say something about Al.
Probably want to stay in the middle there so that.
So in the
people-
middle, okay, something I don't think has been brought out yet. But we all know, very, very well. And that is that Alan was a very wealthy person. But he dealt in a currency that was a little bit different from what we normally deal in. So I first met Alan shortly after he met Al De Gregorio. And Alan was in an office, in the same office with Al, and I was in the office next door. I was a government employee. Alan was with a contractor. And apparently in his contracting office, he did not have a Xerox machine. I don't know why, but that was the case. And he came into my office and he asked around if there was someone, he could talk to, and they led him to me. Comes to my desk and he said, "Excuse me, but you wouldn't perchance have a Xerox machine in this office, would you?" I said, "A Xerox machine? Of course we do. Everyone has a." He said, "Do you think I could maybe possibly use that Xerox machine?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you where it is." And I brought him to the Xerox machine, and that was over 30 years ago. We were friends ever since. Back to the wealth. So we're not talking about gold. We're not talking about cash in the bank. We're not talking about stocks and bonds, okay? Alan's currency was social contacts. We all know that. We know how wealthy he was. But what has not been brought out, this was brought out during the Shiva, during the student session, that Alan is an extender. He extends himself. What do I mean by that? I'll give you some examples. When I first met Alan, we were very, very good friends. Within maybe, a year or two, all of a sudden, guess what? Alan is very, very good friends with my wife, Susanna. And Susanna considers him to be an extremely, very, very good friend of hers. Alan then becomes friends with Susanna's sister, Maria. I'm not sure whether Alan has any time for me at all. Next, Alan becomes really very close friends with Susanna and Maria's mother, Elsa. What's going on here? We had a bat mitzvah for my youngest, for my oldest, and Alan came there and he met my mom. Next thing I know, I don't know how this happened. Next thing I know, I get a call from my mother who says, "Thank you so much for that card. That was very, very nice of you to have done that." What card? She's talking about the card that you sent, that was sent to me. I don't remember sending any cards. Not from you, from Alan. Next thing I know, my mother's calling me, asking me how I'm doing. As soon as I tell her how I'm doing, she doesn't want to know anymore. She wants to know how Alan's doing. What's Alan up to? And Alan's her good friend. So I know this story resonates with all of you, how Alan kind of extended himself to not only, to your to your friends, to your loved ones, but the friends of your loved ones. But that's just how Alan was. I just wanted to get that out there because I didn't think that had been said yet. Thank you.
Can I say something just seated right here? I don't think
Sure.
it's very emotional for me anyway. Alan was my best friend. We met just shortly after 50 years ago. It was June 1973. And he claims he heard me speaking Portuguese, which I don't recall, but I had just come back from Brazil and it was certainly a possibility. And he came up to me and said, "I love Brazilian music." And I said, "Well, I got stacks of Brazilian music at home. Come by and listen." And he did, and that's what began our story. He was at the time living in Georgia, and I thought I detected a Southern accent. Years later, when he was living in Georgetown, I heard him talking to his mother on the telephone, and honey, if it was Southern, it was Southern Bronx. He was reverting to what my speech therapist said, to his original speech patterns. But he stayed in the South for a while and had a couple of interesting jobs, including the concierge for the Omni Hotel in Atlanta. And I'm sure it was a smashing success because of his love of people and good languages and that sort of thing. Ultimately, he came to Washington. And at about that time, I think he moved into my house, but I had a number of people living there. And I was sent to Tunisia with Peace Corps. And he and Dave came by. And although I don't think he was very comfortable in an Arab country, we had a great time. We went to the desert and the Sahara Palace, you'll remember that, and we rode camels and did all kinds of things, that sort of thing. And so that was that. And then I'm going to lose track of time and space, but I was back in France, where I stayed for a year, and he came a number of times. My sisters and I had a house where we rented on the Riviera, and he would come a couple of days before my family. We would go into to Cannes for that sort of thing. I don't know, in the write-ups, I told this story about we were sitting at a sidewalk cafe one morning for breakfast, and a pigeon flew over and dropped a present on his head. And I said, "Well, my friend Stan Hurwitz always said that was Jewish good luck." And he said, "Jewish good luck be damned." He said, "That doggone bird just pooped in my head." Anyway, years went by, and I moved to with. We spent wonderful weekends together. He was number one, a fabulous cook. Number one, very generous. He charmed all my friends in Rehoboth. And then we took, by the way, he left me a wonderful gift. He was a great photographer. And as we would be walking down the streets of Paris, I would lose track of him. He was either taking a picture or engaged in conversation with somebody on the streets. And he left on my computer 4 different trips that we have, and so I can go and relive these wonderful times we've had together. And he was able, as you understand from the conversation previously, to turn on people. And the French are not known for their warmth and friendliness, but he somehow was able to get under their skin, and they loved him. And whether it was a hotel clerk or a waiter or somebody just on the streets, he was absolutely charm himself. Wonderful memories. I was going to say, when he came to Rehoboth, he always brought food and cooking utensils, which I had to have. And I, in those days, I couldn't find any close-up toothpaste, which I loved, and he always managed to bring. I think Ken Lane brought some of the tubes for me and that sort of thing. And he was down to the finest details. The last time I saw Alan, it was the 7th of June, And I was here for an affair at the Hillwood Museum. And he called me up and he said, and he was very sick at the time. And he said, I've got something for you. And he said, I'm on my way. He said, I'm on my car. And I was staying at the Cosmos Club. And he'd been there many times and knew how to get there. But apparently, I think today they're still working on the construction. He got lost. And finally, I got word from him. He said, well, I'm parked in front of the Moroccan embassy. And so I walked over there. What did he have? Lots of toothpaste. He was a great friend, and I miss him beyond belief. By the way, let me say one thing. Please take the flowers home. I made special arrangements. Please take them as a memory of him. The florist told me that they can be planted. So I encourage you to get them, plant them, so you'll have a permanent memory of Alan.
Time for a few more before we invite our Zoom friends, but I want to just remind everyone on Zoom to please stay muted. Thank you. You have one, and then we're going to turn.
Everyone, my name is Krish Kresge. My late husband was someone maybe that Peter Kresge was somebody that many of you knew. I've known Alan now for maybe 25 years through various mutual friends. And it occurred to me today, this morning, when I was thinking about Alan, how these moments when we get together is what really define our friendships. And how amazing he was, as you were saying, sir. And I know stories about you going to Rehoboth, but that he was the true epitome of a friend in so many ways. And again, as someone else said about how other people become his friends, and he befriended my grandchildren, and he would bring gifts to my house, and of course, inevitably the cake, but gifts for each child, and relate to them and get right down on the ground and talk to them. And what have you been doing? And so connecting. And my point is that these occasions can give us an opportunity to do this ourselves, to inspire us to really be better friends. And a wonderful thing that he would do, and I'm sure all of you are recipients of the birthday card, no matter what, every year, I get a birthday card from Alan. And just amazing. And I often would forget to March 16th, his birthday, not always, but occasionally. And so thank you, Richie, for making this wonderful occasion for us and everybody else at home. And I hope Ron is here. I haven't seen him yet, but I want to thank Ron for keeping me in touch also.
Linda has some, oh, can we do one before Linda? Yes, please.
Hello, everyone. I feel as if I know all of you already, as I'm sure most of you feel the same way. As people got up and started talking, I thought, oh, that's the Vince Velan family he was talking about in the building. And I knew immediately Charles from Rehoboth when he started talking. And so I feel as if, I know all of you. I met Alan, I guess about 11 years ago. I had recently moved to Alexandria, and I was about to turn 65. And so I went to a meeting that Medicare was sponsoring, and Kaiser was the insurance company. I was trying to decide whether I was going to go with Kaiser or not. And so we were in Arlington at this big hotel, and I asked a couple of questions and then it was over and I was about to leave, walking out of the door to my car. And this person started running up to me as I got to the door, you know, and I looked around and he said, hello, my name is Alan. And he said, you know, I love the questions that you asked, and I'm trying to decide too, whether to go with Kaiser. Can I have your name and telephone number? And maybe I could give you a call and ask you more questions and see what you decide. And I thought it was kind of strange. He seemed, you know, and he said, where do you live? And I said, well, I'm in Alexandria. We were up in Tyson's Corner at one of the hotels. And he said, well, I'm in Alexandria too. And I said, okay, fine. So I gave him a telephone number or whatever. And I thought, you know, I'm probably not going to ever hear. And sure enough, about a week later, he called and then he wanted to get together. Have lunch or dinner or something and talk about Kaiser. And I thought, they're weird, but okay, fine. So we met, he said, what restaurant would you like to meet? And so I like the Chart House in Alexandria on the river. So we met there and he had called before we finally met. He had called me like 2 or 3 times before in between. And he was full of questions and I, you know, was giving him all the answers I thought and the pros and cons of Kaiser and blah, blah. So we finally met. And as we talked, he got the feeling that I was kind of hesitant about him calling and wanting to have lunch or whatever. So finally, he said, I just want to let you know, I'm gay. I'm not trying to. And it was such a relief. Because I was in a relationship and I was not ready for another relationship. So I fell out laughing at the restaurant. It was just so funny. And from that day, we became very close friends. The birthday cards, we would always go take each other out on our birthdays, or he would cook at home, or I would cook. We shared music, passing CDs or whatever back and forth. He would go with us to the Alexandria Symphony, and we would dinner before, dinner afterwards, just and discuss all kinds of things, movies. He'd make recommendations. I would make books, and he was just so kind and funny to me, and very indecisive. You know, he never could make a decision. So he would call and ask me, what did I think about this? What did I think about that? I give him an opinion. And when I look at the back of the program and I see that painting of the tree, he bought 2 paintings near the end. And before he bought them, he called and he sent me the photos online. What did I think about the paintings? And should he get it or not? I said, why not? You love the paintings, get them. Yeah, what's the problem? And so he was always saying, he called me like his mother, because I would give him advice and say, stop this wishy-washy stuff. Do it, you know. And so then, somebody talked about how the extension. So when I married my Richard here, it was about 3 years ago. We had met when I first met Alan, I had broken up with Richard. And so I spent a lot of time with Alan because, and I would cry on his shoulder because even though my Richard is 86 now and I'm 76, that was 10 years ago when we met. At 76, he was a runaround. And so I would cry on Alan's shoulder and we'd spend a lot of time doing stuff. So then later when he straightened his act up, we married, Alan came to the wedding. We had a beach wedding. He had been at Charles before Rehoboth. And I said, well, why don't you bring Charles? Because the invitation was to both. And he said, oh, you know, Charles, he'll come and in 10 minutes he'll be ready to go. And he never wants to hang around. He said, so no, I'm just gonna come alone. So when he met all of my family, he would go up to them, knew them right away from the photos he had seen. He knew their life story, who was doing what, who was in grad school, what they were. I mean, it was amazing. He had memorized all this stuff before meeting with people. And so when he met my husband before, about 4 or 5 years ago, he immediately clung to him. And it was like, you're supposed to be my friend. Why are you? It was the same thing. So we still can't get over the fact that Alan is gone. I used to talk to him at least 2 or 3 times a week on the phone, and we'd get together. We were supposed to, there was a Brazilian restaurant he was going to take us to, a Moroccan restaurant we were supposed to go to, and we were supposed to go to the symphony again coming up recently because we get season tickets, because we had talked about the first season. And so we just feel very, very sad, but very, very blessed to have had him in our life. And thank you very much, Rich, for doing this. You've done a wonderful job. And I feel this, all of you are our friends.
This reading that Richie asked me to read really encompasses Alan. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and to the old waiting to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother and sister walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give to them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words and sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not on your mind. Head Axel, you're on. Thank you.
Okay, opening up from some comments from Norway. First of all, thanks a lot, Rich, for organizing this meeting to remember Alan. And then, of course, what I've heard so far is remembrances of Alan as a grown man from all of you. But I knew him as a young teenager coming to Norway. And when we met him, I dare say, a boy out of Long Island, he was a little, let's say, soft, according to Norwegian standards. However, during the about 2 months that he spent with us, he was really toughened up. And I think Richard noticed that when he got his big brother back. So while he was sort of a little wimpy when he came, then a few days before going home, he was actually able to crash on a bicycle. And then there was not a sound. It was just a few steps into the house, into the bathroom, cleaning himself of all the blood and patching himself up. So the man you knew has a sort of, he has a touch of a Viking and is from his early days. Thanks a lot, Richard.
We have Bob next.
Thanks.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think it's Debbie and Bob. Bob, come in the picture. We are, I know Bonnie was there earlier and some other Kennedy Center ushers. We were also ushers at the Kennedy Center where we met Alan later in life in our 60s, but I think we were all like kids. And just the laughter and the fun that we had, even though it wasn't a long enough time that we knew them. But in that time, I was just amazed at everything that everyone had said about just his quality and his humanness and ability to connect and intellectual, but then also down to earth. That combination of things, the food, the whole 9 yards. But he was a giver. And one thing that I felt is he when he met you, he was able to tap into what was important to you and then gear his giving to that. He knew I loved decorating, tchotchkes, scarves. So I'm wearing a beautiful scarf that he gave me from a trip to Greece. And things were just done with such care and finesse and class. And I'm sure all of you have been recipients of that, but just a few quick stories about the birthdays. Alan remembered our birthdays and Bob's birthday more than our own family members remember ours. So that just really touched us. And Alan called me in June. It was maybe about a week before my birthday. He was in the hospital, not feeling well, but he told me that he was calling because he wanted to wish me a happy birthday. And that was him. And then one year, I opened the front door and there was a package there. This was again in June, but it was well before my birthday. And I opened the package and there were all these lovely gifts with this gorgeous flower, beautiful paper. I've saved it, and of course, all the gifts. And I thought, what's going on? I called him immediately to thank him. And he said, well, I had an experience where I sent someone a gift and they didn't get it till way late. So I decided to mail your gift early to make sure that you get it. So that was, again, that was Alan. Now we have a neighbor a few doors down who's Brazilian. When I happened to mention that we had a Brazilian neighbor, he went like berserk. I have got to meet your neighbor. You have got to introduce me to your neighbor. Well, we never did introduce him to our neighbor. Sorry, Alan. But his reaction was just hilarious and probably something all of you can relate to. So Bob, is there anything you'd like to add? He was a treasure. He's with us all around our house. I have his gifts all around and I feel his spirit. I feel his spirit. And as I'm sure many of you do. And I know I'm taking up a lot of time, but life happens in very strange ways. But maybe a week or so after we heard that Alan had passed away, I was trying to think of a certain word in French or how it was spelled. And I happened to come across an email he had sent me. And it gave me the clue to how this French word was spelled. And right there on the spot, I felt, thank you, Alan, you're there. You knew I was searching. So he's with all of us. And again, what many of you said, he gave us the gift of knowing the importance of connecting and keeping those connections going. So thank you, everyone. I'm not surprised at all the friends he had, and hearing from all of you, they're obviously the kind of people he loved, and I feel a connection.
Yeah, I just want to mention the birthday thing because I'm a Christmas baby. And it's one of those days you get one gift, one card, and you wait another year. Alan always called me day before, something like that, 9 o'clock in the morning, with a birthday wish, usually sung in French. And of course, the card came in the mail. And you know, it's just another example with for Alan, it was never about him. Never about him, but could drive his actions. And I appreciated that. Thanks.
Thank you, Richie, for providing this opportunity to share and show our love. And we love you too.
Thank you so much. We will hear from Brennan next.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, my name is Brennan. I've known Alan for my entire life. I considered Alan part of my extended family. I always referred to him as Uncle Alan. Shared many Thanksgivings together with the Joneses, who I also consider part of my extended family. And the thing that struck me most, but has not surprised me in the slightest, is how many people considered Alan to be their best friend. Because he was, as I think all of these stories have spoken to, a wonderful and generous person that truly was motivated out of an altruistic sense. He never gave a gift or sent a postcard or gave you a slice of his pear cake with any kind of expectation of anything in return, but because he loved the joy that it brought people. And that is something that I think we should all admire and could all stand to learn from. I think he was a very special person and clearly had many wonderful friends, as I think this shows. But I just wanted to share how much I appreciated that, how Alan took the time out of his day, whether it was with a slice of pear cake or a birthday card, or by showing up a few minutes late to your social gathering, how much he was thinking about you, caring about you, and wanted to appreciate you for who you were. And I think that's something that will stick with all of us, and his legacy will live on in all of us, hopefully in the way that we interact with others, carrying on that little piece of his spirit in our lives, and that little piece of love that we all had for him.
Marilyn. You have to unmute Marilyn, please. Unmute.
Yes. I'm Marilyn John, and I am the first cousin of Alan. Alan's father. Are you getting an echo like I am?
Everyone else muted, please. Make sure everyone else is muted, and hold on a minute. Try again.
I'm getting a big echo. Oh, well. My mother and Alan's father were sister and brother. I'm getting.
Turn down your speaker.
Do you have a phone as well?
Yes, I have a phone. I'm gonna turn it off completely.
And then you should be good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had it, that's right. I had it on my, okay, that's good. Thank you. Turned it off. Thank you so much. I had trouble getting the Zoom on the iPad for a while. So I got it on the phone and just forgot to turn it off. Anyway, Alan was the most wonderful first cousin. And all of you, I feel like I know all of you because Alan always talked about all of his friends in wherever he was, Virginia, Alexandria, or wherever. And I visited him several times in Alexandria. And we had such a good time. One time we went out to dinner on his birthday. I happened to be there on his birthday, and he took me to a wonderful restaurant there. I took him when he came here to San Diego, to the Hotel del Coronado, which is very famous. And he loved that. We had a really good time. He once traveled to, he was taking a cruise and it stopped here in San Diego. So he let me know way ahead of time that he was coming. And I met him down at the harbor, and we had like an afternoon together before he had to go back on the cruise. So we kept in touch. We never kept in touch when we were kids as much, but after his father passed away, we became much, much closer. And we had so much in common regarding the arts and loving music and the arts that we could always talk about that. He was so fluent in French and other languages, and I always wanted to learn French. And so he supported me in that when I was trying to learn French, and still am. And I knew about all of his jobs. When he was in the publishing company, when he was in the publishing company for a while, he sent me some books that I talked about that I wanted. The next thing I knew, I had them sent to me. And every time I think about Alan, I think about his warmth, his generosity, his connection to people, like all of you have heard on the other videos, and the remembering something special about the person that he was connecting with. He always sent birthday cards to me, to my mother. The most exciting thing was when my nephew, my brother's son, my brother passed away from leukemia at age 50, about how many years, about 12, 13 years ago now. When his oldest son got married, when Aaron got married, they had a wedding in Mexico, and I didn't have a roommate. It was going to be expensive. And Alan is part of the family. He's a second cousin to them. He would be a second cousin. So I asked if he could come, and they said, "Oh, sure." And he came and was my roommate for that wedding to help me. But he loved it. It was it was in Mexico. It was at the beach. It was wonderful. And he warmed up. Everybody loved him, as you know that they would. Everybody absolutely loved him. And it was just so fun having him with me. And when my mother passed away 4 years ago, it'll be 5 in July, I had a celebration of life in August to remember her. And Alan came in for that. And some of my closest relatives came in too. And he didn't stay at my house because I had one of my nephews and their wives staying here. Anyway, he stayed at my good friend's house here in the neighborhood. And he, was just so delighted that he had a place to stay. He was so generous with her. He was so, she really got to know him really well in the very short time that he was here. And he met another friend of mine that we went to lunch together. We went to Coronado and had a good time together. And Alan did tell me when he got sick, and because I'm a nurse practitioner, he would send me all of the statistics and the things that he would get from the doctors so that I would be knowledgeable about what was going on. And I kind of lived through that with him. And I kept saying, "Alan, you got through the remission once or close to it." And I kept saying, "There's going to be a miracle." And I was hoping for another miracle like all of you were too. So I really will miss him greatly. And Richie, thank you so much for including me and the people on Zoom, because everybody here loved Alan so much. Thank you.
Very much. We'll hear from Laura next. Laura and Kay, please.
Now I'm unmuted, right?
Yep.
All right. Yay, thank you. Wow. So much to take in from everybody. So I know Alan, because he was my brother's best friend when they were kids, when they were teenagers. And it took about 50 years for us to reconnect. And we reconnected on Facebook, I think, through Richie, because Richie and I are friends. And we became friends. We had conversations, and he would respond to posts, and I would respond to posts. And I think things really sort of just somehow solidified around a trip that I was taking to Barcelona. He was so excited that I was going to Barcelona. He sent me guidebooks. He sent notes for me of how to get from the train to the place where I was going to stay, which he had recommended. And then treated my friend and I to a flamenco concert, which I had never been to. And sorry, all this noise is coming through. And it was as if he was there with me. I somehow in my mind, in my heart, I had wanted to see him again. And I thought that I would see him again. And even though I know he's passed, I so feel him alive in me. Because I think there was a way that we connected. I think we both really shared a love of people and joy and saw and felt life. And yeah, even to this day, sometimes I'll get a Facebook memory and I'll look to see if Alan said something to me. Anyway, I'm very grateful, Richie, for all that you've put together, and to see some of the people that I've heard about over the years, and may we carry him with us. Thank you.
Very much. Steve and Jeff. Steve.
Hi, this is Jeff Mono, and I'm zooming in from Chicago. And thank you, Richard, for including me in this. I knew Alan since 1981, and I can remember the day in the Georgetown P Street Park where he was sunning, which he always did, and I happened to be sunning on a Saturday afternoon. And quite frankly, I don't know who picked who up. But we had a mutual attraction, and Alan was just, here was this guy who spoke 5 different languages and had been everywhere in the world, worked for Peace Corps, etc. I was completely blown away by his past and his personality. I had many dinners at the Charles Georgetown House, and yes, I can confirm he was a marvelous cook. And up until now, I thought I was a very special person, having received his birthday cards every year right on time. And now I discover everybody did. So what that means to me is that I'm not special particularly, but he was the special one, because no one else would ever do that. So all I can say is that the last time I had seen him was last November. We met for brunch and went to the African American Museum, and he was always interested in learning, and that learning never stopped. And in conclusion, all I can say is Alan was and will be remembered as a very giving, loving, and hilarious person. So Rich, thanks for allowing me to speak. Thanks.
you so much, everyone on Zoom, and thank you all today for your stories, your remembrances, and the pieces of connection, because that's what really came out.
I know. Hello.
Oh. Harriet? Harriet? Do
This
you
is
want
Fred
to?
Thompson.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see a hand. Fred, can you mute?
I can.
You mute, thank you. Harriet, did you want to speak? Please unmute. Harriet, can you unmute? Can you unmute Harriet? Harriet. You need to unmute. Please unmute.
Rob, unmute Harriet.
Can't Rob do it? Harriet, you need to unmute.
She's not actually, let me see if I can. This is the Zoom tech.
Sorry, sorry.
Looks like she's muted.
She's on mute.
She's unmuted.
Can't hear. Can't hear. Can you turn up your volume, Harriet? He has a card.
No, I can't hear you. Do you want to unmute? See if we can hear you. No, this isn't working.
Did you want to speak?
This is Fred. Yes, I'd like to.
Speak briefly, please.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn and I first knew Alan in 1968 when he joined the University of Georgia Press in Athens the same time that I did. And we were both amused to some extent about the current director of the press, who was a very stereotyped provincial Southerner. And you would only imagine how Alan interacted with somebody so different from him. But he did, and secured an invitation to Mr. Stevens' home for dinner. Alan was just a natural at going into bookstores and securing new accounts for the University Press, and did that many, many times. He was instrumental in one of the key books that we published, The Architecture of Middle Georgia, which was published all over the Southeast. And he went to many bookstores establishing that account. His gregarious, non-provincial, unconventional manner ingratiated himself to so many people in the South. He just became a natural and was assumed that Georgia was really his second home, if maybe not his home forever. He was always anxious to come back and see us. He, as many of you have said, he never forgot a birthday. Even on June of this year, when he was so sick, he sent me a birthday card. We were away on a month's trip, and sadly, I didn't see it until we got back in late June, but we immediately contacted him and he answered the phone in the hospital. We were so saddened by it. His ability to jump into things that he was not accustomed to always amazed me. I'm an outdoors person and enjoy canoeing. So when he was here in Georgia, we were planning a canoe trip, and I asked him if he'd like to go. He said, "Oh, I'd love to."
So we canoed the Chattahoochee River. And I said, Alan, you can't run a canoe by yourself. You're going to have a partner. And he said, well, I'll find somebody. And he did. And the two of them bounced off the edges of the stream more than they stayed in the middle of the stream. And we had to fish them out twice and turn their canoe back up right side. But they completed about a 10-mile canoe trip that day, although a little bit wet, but nevertheless in great spirits and never quit or gave up for a minute. He was always just intrepid and would tackle anything new. We ate in his home as he was becoming an accomplished chef here in Athens several times, and we visited him and managed to connect. In 2004, I started publishing a national travel magazine that was a quarterly for people that own motorhomes. And we feature cities throughout the United States, and I wanted to feature Quebec. And I thought Alan would be a natural to write that story. He did, and so it was published 3 years ago. I made copies of it for your meeting today. Sorry I couldn't be there to bring it myself, but I sent 50 copies there to the Friends Meeting House, and I hope each of you got a copy, along with a brief eulogy that I included from Carolyn and myself at the end of that 16-page story. And so sorry we couldn't be there, but I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing all of you relate stories. I'm only ashamed of myself because I didn't send as many birthday cards to him and Christmas cards as he sent to us. He was a great person to include everybody in his scopes of friendship throughout the world. And Richie, we appreciate you including us, and sorry we could not be there. Wish we could have. Thank you so much.
You want to have her call? Did she call? Did she call?
Harriet, could you try it again, Harriet?
Still speaking.
Grace wants to say something. I don't think we're on her computer. You want to try again?
Maybe let her know that there is something in the notes. She might not know to look at the chat.
Thanks, Laura. Can we go with Trace and we'll come back to you, Harriet, please? Mute Trace, please. There you go. No, oh, you put it back on. You were unmuted. There you go, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Trace. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Trace Carskadden, and I'm in Florida, unable to be with you people today. But aren't we fortunate to have known Alan? And I know in my heart that he's with me today. He's with each of us today and every day. He's just imprinted on me in a huge way. And let me tell you how I met him. I was on a cruise and I was having coffee in the Lido, and it was a table for 6. And this good-looking man walked up and said, "Do you mind if I sit here?" And I said, "No, have a seat." And I extended my hand and I said, "My name is Trace." And he said to me, very un-Alan-like, "Oh, we can't shake hands. There's a virus on board." And I said, "Oh, okay." So then he says, "Where are you from?" I'm saying, "Where are you from?" He finds out that I'm from Vienna, Virginia, and he's from Alexandria, Virginia. He stands up, comes around, and kisses me on both cheeks. And from that second, we became friends. And we talked about the freckles and the pigment marks. we could, and politics and pastries, we could talk about anything. And I grew as a person knowing him. And I will continue to be a lifetime learner, traveler, communicant, because of Alan. And I feel so blessed to have met him and to know him and to keep him with me. I miss him. I miss our conversations. I miss our laughter. I miss our satire. But aren't we lucky to have known him? Thank you. Oh, one more thing. I was able to bring something to him. He told me how he loved the Kennedy Center. And I said, well, I do Traveler's Aid at the airport. You've got to try it. And so he did come out to Dulles and loved it. And he said Dulles was too far for him from Alexandria. So he started at Reagan Airport. And he was steadfast volunteer there, as in every way, every form of life he ever had. He made thousands of friends, travelers and other Travelers Aid employees, volunteers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's now time for us to wrap it up. And in Jewish tradition, we say the mourner's Kaddish. And traditionally, we stand while we so. So if you feel moved, you do not have to. Please stand. And if you do know the mourner's Kaddish, recite it along with me. Feel free. Yigdal v'yikdash shemei rabah. Yamad yivrach Yerusalem v'yamlich hamalchuteh. V'chayichon v'umekom yeh beit Yisrael. Allah uzman kareem v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabah v'rach. Olam l'olayim v'yomaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitfa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalal v'yitalal shmei d'kudashah. Brichu. Leila Ming Baracha Virshata Tushbachata Benechamata Dagran Viamra Viamru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rava Min Shamaya. V'chayalenu V'yokol Yisrael Viamru. Amen. Ose Shalom B'mromav. Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'yokol Yisrael Viamru. Amen. Thank you.
That's not too much Jewish stuff, or religious stuff, I should say, right?
I was telling you, it wasn't always easy to somebody who was larger than life. When you were a kid growing up. But Alan made it all worthwhile. And when I came down to see Alan in April, he was always telling me about that every one of the doctors, every one of the nurses, every one of the technicians, who they were, where they were from, every story about every person. And this is what I had gone on with my entire life. And so when I came down in April, he was so excited that I was going to take the train down to see him. And he said, "Oh, I can't wait for you to meet this doctor. And I'm going to introduce you to this person." And I had it with Alan. And I said to him, "Alan, I don't want to meet any more of your pals." And he was really, really, really hurt. And when I came down in April, he was crushed by my saying that. And I had to explain to him, I said, "Alan, it's not that I don't appreciate you having all these wonderful friends, but I want you to focus on yourself when you go to the doctor. And I want to see the doctor, but I want to hear about what you're going through," because he never took care of himself as much as he took care of the world. And we are all, and when I came down in June, I got to meet Helen all over again because I had heard about everybody here many, many times. But it wasn't until I got to meet you and to see how much love you had for Alan, how much love he had for you, that I realized that Alan was the ultimate people person, and you are his people. You are his people. He made a family. He made friends with the whole world, and he made family of all of his friends. And through meeting each other and seeing, oh, that's this person, that's that person, it's touched me so deeply. Alan, I want to thank you all so much for coming. I want to thank you for being part of Alan's life when he needed your help, and when he reached out to you and you were there for him, and that you are here today, and that you folks are from around the world. And this is his sister, Sindus, who was 9 years old when I was 10 years old. I think you were 9 years old. Anyway, all of these people have come together. We're all one big Allen family. Thank you so much, Charles, for bringing the flowers. There are flowers that we would love you to take home with you and plant and remember Alan by. Alan was, as he described himself in the hospital, was a clutter hound. Okay? And we, with the help of Ron, who's back there, and Ken, who's over there, and Darcy, and you know, so many of you, we managed to clear his apartment a week and a half ago. We brought over 60 cartons, about 60 cartons of books to the DC library, to the Georgetown Library. And it wasn't until last night that I remembered that Alan lived just down the road here. I think it was Woodley Avenue when I first came to DC near the zoo. So Alan has been around, and we brought these books there. We gave his clothing to a group called ECHO, the Ecumenical Community Housing Organization, I think, to homeless shelters, to nonprofit organizations. So we were able to do that, and Alan would be so thrilled to know that finally he couldn't decide where to give his things. So I was cleaning his apartment, and I realized this isn't stuff. This is stuff that really meant so much to Alan. And so I brought it here, and I beg of you, please, everything here is choice stuff that I picked through for you. It's a gift from Alan. It's not from me. I'm just getting it to you. Please take it, because he would be heartbroken to know that it wasn't taken and it would have to go to the trash. So please take it. And I just want to leave you now with the words of a very special friend here, who I believe is here, a young friend. So Ron, can you show the last video here? Desmond, are you here?
He had to step out.
I'm showing it now.
Okay. And this is Desmond with his friend. And after this, we're going to go on to the reception room, and please, you'll find stuff there. We can also get you Alan's remains in little bottles of Southern Comfort.
Thanks, Richie. You gonna go up? Don't worry about your mom. Your mom's having her own fun. We're having our own fun over here, aren't we? Are you gonna be a video star? You're gonna be a video star. You're watching the camera. I'm trying to get you to watch the bunny. What happened to the bunny? What happened to the bunny? He's doing all these tricks. You don't care. There you go, buddy. There you go, buddy. I love it. Enough. Enough.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richie. Thanks, Richie.
Don't forget to take the flowers.
Thank you. Thanks, Richie, wherever you are.
Thanks, Richie. Take good care, Richie.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye, thank you so much.
That's my second guess.
Nice to meet everyone.
See you.
Bye.
It was great meeting all of you.
Yeah.
I know why he was friends with all.
I have a habit of seeing people's faces. But not knowing who they are.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
I don't think we're gonna see the reception. Are you? Do you think so?
We talked to you.
No.
It was great seeing all of you.
Okay.
Feel like he was funny too. So what you would
Zoom controller, I think, can switch over to the reception.
Zoom controller, can you switch over to the reception so we could see it?
Guess not.
That's fantastic. Betty, no. Number 99. All the people you get kind of on there. I meant to say that.
They did volunteer work together. And they worked at the Library of Congress. They volunteered
Yeah.
Stuff is a lot. I'm gonna put these in my yard. I have a front yard and I'm gonna put them in there.
Louis. Yeah, absolutely. The car, it's trapped. No, I just, I'm, this reception is downstairs. I switched it to.
Well, I figured it's on.
The screen is now problem.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I think we can't see it anymore, no?
Whether he faced prejudice or he didn't want to have prejudice, anti-Semitism.
Shouldn't have had any prejudice in Georgia, in Brooklyn.
But oh wow. Oh wow, 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 wow.